Isabella pressed her throbbing cheek against the cool bathroom tiles, the sting of Lucas' slap still burning her skin. Outside the locked door, her husband's drunken shouts blended with his mother Margot's venomous whispers. Her trembling fingers traced the cracked phone screen where her savings account balance glowed. $47,326. The exact amount Lucas needed to cover his latest stock market disaster. "I know you're hiding in there." Lucas' fist pounded the door, making the mirror rattle. "That money's mine as much as yours." Through the vent, Margot's syrupy poison dripped into the fight. "Darling, maybe if you'd been a better wife, my son wouldn't need to ask." Isabella's gaze fell on the makeup bag by the sink. Buried beneath half-used lipsticks lay her secret weapon, 3 months of hidden recordings. Margot's tax evasion schemes whispered during wine-soaked dinners. Lucas' Wall Street buddies bragging about insider trading. The digital evidence glowed like embers in a dying fire. When the shouting finally stopped, Isabella emerged to find Lucas passed out on their Italian leather sofa, stock charts flickering on his laptop. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. One email to the Securities Exchange Commission would end everything. Margot's designer heels clicked across marble floors. Still playing the victim? She plucked a photo of Isabella's late mother from the shelf. Such a shame she didn't live to see her daughter become a parasite. The antique frame shattered against the wall, glass shards catching moonlight like fallen stars. In that moment, Isabella's tears dried. She smiled, the first real smile since her wedding day. "Thank you." Isabella stepped over the debris, Margot's confusion fueling her resolve. "For showing me exactly what needs to burn." The next morning, while the Vegas nursed hangovers, Isabella drove her cherry-red convertible to a storage unit filled with evidence boxes. Dante Rojas leaned against his unmarked sedan, morning coffee in hand. "Took you long enough?" The investigator handed her a thumb drive. "Bank records from their Cayman accounts. You were right. The fraud goes deeper." They worked through sunrise, the unit's single bulb casting long shadows over decades of financial crimes. Dante paused as Isabella catalogued another shell company. "You realize they'll come after you twice as hard?" Isabella snapped a photo of Margot's forged signatures. "Let them. When the police come knocking, I want every door welded shut." Back at the mansion, Lucas waited with bloodshot eyes and empty threats. "Where's my money?" He grabbed her wrist, the familiar grip that used to leave bruises. Isabella didn't flinch. Gone, invested in something more valuable. Her free hand activated the voice recorder in her pocket. "Tell me, darling, how does 20 years in federal prison sound for your next career move?" The slap never came. Instead, Lucas stumbled back from her icy calm. For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes, the primal terror of prey sensing the hunter. Upstairs, Margot's screams echoed through the house. "My accounts. They're frozen." Paperwork flew from her office like financial confetti. "Who did this?" Isabella appeared in the doorway, holding 2 steaming mugs. "Chamomile tea, Mother. You look stressed." The liquid splashed across Margot's designer blouse as the older woman lunged. "Careful." Isabella dodged, her smile knife-sharp. "Hot water leaves nasty stains." The real carnage began at dawn. IRS agents swarmed the estate while reporters camped at the gates. Isabella watched from the security cameras as Lucas tried fleeing in her convertible, only to find the engine disabled. Margot's attempt to bribe an officer ended with handcuffs cutting into her wrinkle-free wrists. Dante appeared beside her in the surveillance room. "Beautiful work. Though I'd have sold the footage to TMZ." "Patience." Isabella tapped the monitor showing Margot's meltdown. The bankruptcy auction should be spectacular. The courthouse steps felt colder than the February air as Isabella adjusted her burgundy trench coat. Inside the packed courtroom, Margot's diamond earrings caught the fluorescent lights as she whispered frantically with her lawyer. Lucas sat 3 rows back, his tailored suit hanging loose on shoulders that had lost their Wall Street swagger. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Martinez." The bailiff's voice cut through the murmurs. Isabella took her seat beside Dante, their files spread across the wooden bench like battle plans. She traced the embossed scales of justice on the courtroom seal, remembering how different those scales had felt when tipped against her. Margot's lawyer launched into his opening statement. "My client is the victim of an elaborate..." Dante nudged a notepad toward Isabella. Scribbled in his messy cursive, check page 43, offshore transfers match. She nodded, the silk scarf at her neck brushing against fresh burns from yesterday's kitchen accident. When the prosecutor displayed Margot's forged documents on the courtroom screens, Isabella watched her mother-in-law's manicured hands tighten around the defense table. The numbers glowed like neon signs. $2.3 million hidden in Belize, $1.7 million in Luxembourg. Objection: these records were obtained illegally. Margot's lawyer shot up, spilling coffee across his yellow legal pad. The judge peered over her glasses. Counselor, are you suggesting your client maintains offshore accounts? The gallery erupted. Reporters scrambled for the exits, phones pressed to ears. Isabella met Margot's glare across the room, the older woman's mascara beginning to bleed as realization set in. Outside during recess, Lucas cornered her by the water fountain. His cologne, that same woodsy scent from their first date, now smelled like decay. You can still stop this. His breath fogged the chrome surface. I'll sign the divorce, just... Isabella pressed the fountain lever, icy water cascading over his polished shoes. Careful, darling. You're drowning. The verdict came at 3:17 p.m. on a Thursday. Guilty on 14 counts of financial fraud. As marshals clicked the handcuffs around Margot's wrists, her string of pearls snapped, ivory spheres rolling across the courtroom floor like tears. Lucas' trial proved quicker but no less brutal. Security footage showed him tampering with stock reports, while Isabella's recordings played his threats in Dolby clarity. When the judge revoked his trading license, the former Golden Boy vomited in the defendant's chair. The bankruptcy auction drew scavengers from 5 states. Isabella watched from the estate's security gate as strangers carted off Margot's antique chandeliers and Lucas' vintage wine collection. A tattooed bartender won the cherry red convertible with a bid that barely covered its tire pressure sensors. You kept this? Dante appeared beside her, holding the photo frame she'd shattered months earlier. The glass had been replaced, her mother's smile shining through unscathed. Some things deserve second chances. Isabella tucked the frame into her moving box. The storage unit evidence now filled 3 FBI evidence lockers, but this single photo would grace her new apartment's bare walls. On moving day, spring rain washed the estate's gilded gates clean. Isabella left her wedding ring in the master bathroom sink, the diamond catching light through leaded glass windows one final time. Her new loft smelled of fresh paint and possibility, the blank walls awaiting stories without fingerprints. Dante helped unload boxes, his sleeve brushing hers as they passed in the narrow hallway. You know, he paused, a decade-old concert poster peeking from a half-open container. Bruce Springsteen's playing next week. Got an extra ticket. Isabella balanced a box marked New Beginnings on her hip. Does this count as a bribe, investigator? More like a ceasefire. His dimple appeared when she laughed, the sound unfamiliar but welcome in the empty space. The first nightmares came 3 days later. Isabella woke drenched in sweat, phantom hands around her throat. She painted until dawn, crimson swirls consuming canvas after canvas. When morning light revealed the abstract carnage, she recognized the pattern: Margot's stock portfolios, Lucas' broken promises, her own fractured reflection. Therapy sessions left her raw but lighter. Dr. Chen's office smelled of jasmine tea and patience. Trauma isn't a life sentence, she said during their 4th session, handing Isabella a potted succulent. Just remember to water yourself too. By summer, Isabella's art show invitations began arriving. Gallery owners marveled at her financial dystopia series, shredded stock certificates woven into tapestries, blockchain printouts burned into abstract landscapes. She donated proceeds to a women's shelter, watching survivors transform the art into armor. When Margot's appeal failed, Isabella celebrated with tiramisu from the corner cafe. The espresso soaked through ladyfingers like karma through generations. Lucas' handwritten apology letter arrived that same afternoon, postmarked from a rehab center. She burned it in her steel sink, ashes swirling down the drain like forgotten stock tips. Dante's Springsteen ticket remained pinned above her drafting table. On opening night of her biggest exhibition, she found him studying a mixed media piece titled Margin Call. You missed the encore, he said, hands deep in leather jacket pockets. Isabella adjusted the painting's placard, had to finish setting traps. They stood shoulder to shoulder as patrons dissected her work. A tech mogul complained about the hostile composition, while his date teared up at the embedded audio. faint whispers of worthless and never enough looping through antique speakers. Later, when the gallery emptied, Dante produced 2 backstage passes from his wallet. Third row next time, unless you're scared of guitar solos. Isabella locked the exhibition doors, streetlights painting her smile in gold. You know I only dance to revenge anthems. The convertible's engine purred to life, carrying them toward the highway's disappearing horizon. Behind them, the city glittered like a circuit board waking from hibernation. Ahead, the open road shimmered with pixelated promise, a live-streamed sunrise waiting to buffer. The cherry-red convertible's engine hummed as Isabella coasted down Sunset Boulevard. 3 months after the trial, sunlight filtering through palm trees painted tiger stripes across the dashboard. She gripped the steering wheel tighter when passing the old neighborhood, where gated communities hid crumbling marriages behind manicured hedges. At the women's shelter downtown, a teenager with chipped nail polish stared at the car. "This yours?" she asked, tracing the chrome trim with reverent fingers. "Paid in full." Isabella popped the trunk, revealing boxes of donated art supplies. "Help me carry these? There's extra credit if you can guess the horsepower." The girls' laughter echoed in the parking lot, a sound Isabella catalogued beside the memory of courtroom applause. Inside, murals she'd painted last month bloomed across concrete walls, phoenixes rising from checkbook flames, wolves tearing apart stock market ticker tapes. Dante arrived as she was demonstrating spray paint techniques. He leaned against the doorframe holding 2 iced coffees, watching her guide a survivor's trembling hand to create fiery petals around a broken chain. "Boss wants you for the Eastwood case," he said when their eyes met. White-collar embezzlement with a side of spousal sabotage. Isabella wiped cobalt streaks from her forearm. "Still trying to recruit me? Figured you'd want front-row seats." He nodded at the emerging mural. "They're using the same offshore accounts Margot did." The shelter's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A toddler nearby stacked blocks into unstable towers, each collapse met with giggles rather than tears. Isabella watched a woman in the corner carefully reconstruct torn family photos with gold leaf glue. "Send me the files," she said finally. "But I'm not testifying this time." Dante's dimple appeared as he handed over the coffee. "Knew you couldn't resist." That night, spreadsheets glowed on her laptop beside tubes of burnt sienna oil paint. The numbers danced familiar patterns. Hidden transactions disguised as art purchases, shell companies named after flowers. Her brush moved instinctively, documenting financial crimes in abstract strokes while cross-referencing bank records. Dr. Chen's advice whispered through her mind during their weekly session. "Fire needs containment," she'd said, adjusting her jade bracelet. "But maybe you're the kind that purifies." The sting operation unfolded on a foggy Tuesday morning. Isabella watched from a surveillance van as federal agents raided an art gallery downtown. Through night vision cameras, she saw her own painting hanging above the smuggled cash, a triptych of wilted roses concealing blockchain patterns. "Boss says nice work on the tip," Dante muttered, adjusting his earpiece. "They've been tracking these guys for years." Isabella focused on the live feed. A man in a tailored suit was arguing with agents, face contorting an expression she'd last seen on Lucas during the bankruptcy auction. When he lunged for the painting, security footage clearly showed him dislodging the hidden compartment. "Gotcha," she breathed. The van smelled of stale coffee and justice. By autumn, her nightmares had transformed. Instead of choking hands, she dreamed of koi ponds where fish balanced ledgers on their fins. She started leaving sketchbooks in courthouse bathrooms, pages filled with financial literacy cartoons for overwhelmed plaintiffs. The morning Margot's parole hearing was denied. Isabella bought a potted orchid for Sylvia's prison counselor. "For your waiting room," she told the frazzled woman. "Roots take time to grow." At the vintage car show, a familiar voice cut through the engine roars. "Still compensating?" Lucas leaned against a muscle car, prison tattoos peeking from his collar. His smirk faltered when she revved the convertible's engine, the sound drowning his next insult. Security escorted him out as Isabella adjusted her rearview mirror. The reflection showed Dante approaching with funnel cake powder on his lips, holding 2 tickets to a jazz festival. "Too obvious?" he asked, wiping sugar from his jacket. Isabella patted the passenger seat. "Depends if you're buying dinner after." They left tire marks on the parking lot asphalt, classic rock blending with the hum of highway traffic. In the glove compartment, a new sketchbook waited beside fresh subpoenas. The city skyline shrank in her mirror. its glass towers reflecting clouds that looked suspiciously like balance sheets. Somewhere beyond the county line, a radio station played revenge ballads turned empowerment anthems. Isabella rolled down the windows, letting the wind carry away the last remnants of someone else's perfume lingering in the upholstery. The road ahead shimmered with possibilities, potholes and all.